All right. And so I have started the timer. Hi, this is Jen. We are here again with another Tattoos and Toddlers episode where we talk about business, life, parenting, and of course, tattoos. There are so many of us out there with great tattoo stories, but we also are a lot of great parents out there that love to work or have been in parenting, in that duality of how do you work and still be a parent. This is what this podcast is about. And I really want to welcome my wonderful friend Autumn, who I know from high school 1,000 years ago. So Autumn, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me. I'm Autumn Cooper. I am a licensed professional counselor. And so I always like to start out with a little bit of like, while I am a licensed professional counselor, I am not your licensed professional counselor. And this is no way around getting true health care if you need it, including therapy. So.
Absolutely. And I'm Jen. I'm a wedding photographer and conceptual artist. And so I love talking about things that help us go deeper into ourselves and deeper into our collective communities and how we can help each other. So Autumn brought to me a really interesting topic that we were discussing yesterday in the messenger. And I believe that you called it the attachment cycle. I would love for you to kind of go into that and, kind of explain that to us as far as it is with young children or just children in general.
Oh, I think it's all humans, right? But it
Yeah,
starts
all
more
humans.
babies. So yes,
True.
so it's this is out of 60 years plus of attachment research, but Cooper, Kaufman, and Powell, I think I got their names right. They're the people who developed what's called this idea of the circle of security, and this is the way that they describe it. So I want to make sure to give them all the,
Yes.
um, you know, give them all the glory for the work that they've done on the attachment cycle. So
Absolutely.
the way they depict it, and I think it makes so much sense, and things that I wish I would have known when I was a parent, especially of very young children, is that they describe it in the terms of a circle. And so the baby's job is to go around the circle, and on the top of the circle, they are searching for things like delight, and sometimes they need some protection, and they want you to just enjoy them and play with them. And so while they're out on the top of the circle, it's when they're growing and getting, growing up and getting big. And so, and then the bottom of the circle, they still need delight, but it's when they come back into you. And so there's this third part of this, like the circle, which are your hands. And so on the top of the circle, your hand, your left hand is one that is the secure base that launches them out,
Mm.
that helps them go out on the top of the circle. And then your right hand is represented by like, come back in. At the bottom of the circle, I'll be your safe haven. So a secure base and a safe haven. And children need to make all these rounds bunches and bunches of times. And depending on, kind of a mom's or a caregiver's history of like where their grownups were okay on that attachment cycle is where there may be some challenges that kind of come back.
This is so interesting to me because I'm sure there has to be a graphic out there that we can all look at,
Mm.
right? Of
Yes.
this circle because I just think about how many times did I sit down as a new mom and read through like the Wonder Weeks or whatever to let me know what my child was going through in her development. And this just kind of like I like this idea of this is how I'm hearing it and this is how I'm applying it to my brain right now. Like I'm hearing, okay, I'm going to push you out just a little bit, and then you're going to be able to come right on back into the safe haven. You're going to get pushed out a little bit more, learn more, grow more, and you're going to keep developing. And then I'm going to bring you right back in whenever you're ready. I'm assuming it's not a cycle that we push on other people, but it's a natural cycle within us, right? Maybe?
It's an absolutely natural cycle, and you can see it in little tiny babies when they grow, when they're starting to realize that there's a world outside of that 12 inches, which is just
Aww.
them and their mother, right? And then they look away, but what do? They come back and they make that eye contact with mom. I think it really shows up around 8 months old, 9 months old, when babies, you'll be holding them and somebody might come up that and just says, "Oh, hi, Jen, hi, Miracle." And at 8 months old, we would have expected Miracle to kind of cling a little bit tighter and kind of maybe look her eyes, but then she'd look right at you. And if you're smiling at that grown up, then she's probably going to re-engage with that grown up because you are signaling this is safe and you are safe, more importantly. And that is where you can see that attachment cycle come in. They're in your arms, right? At 8 months old,
Right,
usually.
right.
But they're still out exploring, and then they come back in, look at you, hey, help me organize my emotions. Is this person safe? And then if you're smiling at them, they go, oh, okay, so they're chill. I can engage again. And then, when you're like 45, like you go home to your grown-ups house, you want your grown-ups to greet you and they're warm and, they made your favorite meal. You're out in the secure world. I mean, you're out in your world. Then you come back in, you do need that safe haven throughout your lifespan. And so if you imagine if you came home, I can imagine if I went home to my mom's and she didn't make my favorite dish and she was just like, come on in, good, hey, like, no, she there's fanfare that says, I'm your safe haven, come on back home.
Oh my gosh, this makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside because I think of our homes are so, they should be, hopefully, you're building sacred spaces in your homes for your family, whatever your family looks like. And I think often about our home here that we've built for the last 18 years and how I had to make space for my little kid and how we have like a 4-bedroom house, but one bedroom was like completely filled with all of my creative stuff. And so like having that space for her, and this is something I've heard too, going on par with what I'm hearing in my head here, is that I had heard one time when I was learning about young children, and at least specifically my parenting and how to capture this and how to live it, is that, if they act up at home and they have this attitude at home and they're saying all these things, but they're beautifully well behaved in public, that's actually a great thing, because then they feel like they have a safe space to completely just let everything out. Any frustration at home is welcome, and you're working through all these little tiny emotions, especially with the age that I'm with right now. And just then I think about us as adults needing that exact same thing. We need a safe space to just let it all out, whether it's in an actual space or if you're like talking with a friend in a safer space where you can just let everything out and not be judged and not be ridiculed and not have anything thrown back in your face when you're trying to process this life. So I was thinking about that as we're talking about the cycle as well, because I was like, well, we all have cycles of emotions and cycles of these things that we do need these spaces. So is there anything else that we can talk about as far as maybe a personal story of yours that you've experienced with this kind of cycle?
Oh gosh, I think just that idea of going home.
Yeah.
I'm personally adopted, so had some disruptions in my early attachments, and I've seen that kind of play out in key relationships my whole life. And so I'll jump into like kind of some of the pre-conversation too about getting these tattoos. I realized when I started doing
Yes.
all this research on attachment that like, oh hell, like a lot of my tattoos I've gotten with people that I was so worried about them abandoning me. And you can see like my attachment style play into that, because there's a sense, I think, that like, oh, if we get this matching tattoo, we're forever linked.
Yeah.
Um, so I have 7 tattoos total. 5 of them are matching tattoos, like matching with people in my life that I wanted to really make sure would, stick around. And so a couple of them are my daughters, that I have matching tattoos with each of my daughters. And we have a little matching tattoo, my little grandson that was just born too soon. We can get into that at another time. And
Yeah.
then one tattoo on my leg that, I think we all kind of, maybe not all of us, but some of us kind of get one that we think, oh, maybe like I'm going to cover that up. And I've wrestled with it a lot because I had it in with my ex-spouse. And so, but it's staying there. I think it's a big part of my story. And built a little tiny house with 2 of our close friends at the time. And so we still all 4 have that tattoo in different places. Got it
Aww.
on my birthday. Totally having a good time, and one of those midnight tattoos where you're trying to just find a place that's open and get it from some strangers. So
That's true. Like I was telling the story of my first tattoo on this last episode, and that's kind of what we did. What we both were in Oklahoma for many seasons of our life. I don't know how long, if you've been there since you were
all my life,
born, so
yes.
all your life. So I was in Oklahoma just long enough to be there for like my main education things, I think. But when I went to college, we couldn't get tattoos at the time because it was illegal in Oklahoma, right? So we crossed the border to Kansas. But I do remember us having to do some last minute research. Y'all get ready in the yellow pages to see what was available in this, in the city we were driving to, right? So, but it definitely was at night, and it definitely was like 2.5 hours across the border.
That feels vaguely familiar. My first
That
one
feels very familiar, right? Like, I'm sure you lived there
crossing
in
the
the
border.
time where we weren't supposed to, I don't know if there were any parlors open during that time. And then, I
I
mean,
don't think
I'm
so. Not
specifically talking
legally.
about, yeah, I'm talking about the 90s for sure. This was the 1990s. And this is how Autumn and I know each other, is from the 90s, is, we went to high school together. So this is such a great reunion, and the fact that we're talking about adult things when our mindset and mind shifts back then were completely different. I was just trying to get along with everybody and do good in school, and that was pretty much it. That was like my only goal at the time. And then, I've been so attached. Let's talk about attachment cycles. Like, the reason why I never left Milburn is because I loved all of y'all so dearly, and you all welcomed me in so wonderfully that, especially on the basketball team, everybody was just so sweet. And I had not had that in years. And I
Mm.
was like, man, Milburn's kind of a really cool spot to just kind of settle for a little while. So I stayed there because of that. Otherwise, I would have ended up in a different city. And I think I would have been a different person had I not been around all of you guys.
Oh,
Because I was, it was great because the basketball team, I had every grade was represented, and I could meet everybody that was outside of my grade. And so y'all have like a soft spot in my heart for the last, 30 something years or whatever. Since
one
the
of
90s.
mine. Since the 1900s. That's what my kid said.
Yeah,
This is
since the
like from the
1900s.
1900s.
And yeah, but
Milburn's a magical place, isn't it?
it was for me at the time of my life.
Mhm.
It was something that I needed. I needed some good, solid, friendly people in my life. And it's just, I needed people that wouldn't like um I was so tired of the high school mentality in general. I was just like, just let's get here and get stuff done. Let's just stop whining about stuff and making fun of people. And I met my freshman year was done in a different school, and I was just annoyed with everybody there, and I was just like, okay, what's next? Thankfully, we weren't allowed to like go to Tishomingo. They said that our house was out of range, and I was like, so we ended up at Milburn because of that. So
Oh, I'm so
so it
glad
all
you
worked
did.
out. It all worked out really well. And, I'm still friends with Priscilla. I'm still friends with a lot of the folks that I'm just so impressed of how much y'all still are the same, but you're not the same. you
Yeah,
know?
foundationally, we're still the same, even though we've all probably
Yeah. You
moved.
still have your very sweet persona about you. You always seemed so sweet and quiet at the time. Of course, I wasn't running around with everybody like everybody else was, but when we were all in class, it was like, oh, Autumn is just so sweet. And
Pretty sweet. I don't think anybody's ever called me quiet, but maybe at school I was.
yeah, maybe at school, I think, well, I was obviously very quiet too. So it's like, I'm sure, I don't know if you're still friends with Tiara, but like
I am. I'm going
Tiara
to the British Isles with her later this year.
yeah,
I mean,
Tiara and Rhonda were like the loud personalities that
mhm.
freaked me
And
out in a
rainy,
good
a little
way.
loud.
Yeah, in a good way. But then we had the personalities that were a lot much more quieter. Wesley was about as quiet as you could get.
Still
which I,
is.
which I thought was great, right? And so just again, because the classes were so small, we all get to know each other and stuff like that. But do you have can you detail one of your tattoos and what it looks like and maybe what like the experience was? I'm curious on one of your shared tattoos, the actual like what was it?
Oh, so I'll just since I talked about it already, I'll talk about the one that I share with my two of my still very close friends, Mark
Yeah.
and Megan, and they built a tiny house at the time, and so the tattoo is of a tiny house, and they were the Monteiths, and we were the Coopers, and my good friend Megan is an microbiologist, and so we were gonna start a tiny house company called MC Squared, because
Oh,
the Monteiths and the Coopers, and there were two of them, and so the tattoo is just a little tiny house that says MC Squared.
that's so cute though. Like,
So cute.
are we talking like an inch? Or are we talking like an
It's just
inch
a
and a
little tiny one on the bottom of my ankle.
That's so cute.
It
Well,
was cute.
I think the only thing I have close to a shared experience is when my friend's birthday party, she says, hey, I'm doing a birthday party. It's called Tacos and Tattoos. And I was like, I like this. And so we all went and ate tacos together, and then we all went to Deep Ellum to get tattoos together. We didn't get matching tattoos, but we had the shared tattoo experience in the same room.
That feels very meaningful, doesn't it?
It
You'll never
does.
forget.
It's very, very memorable and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So that, it just I'm the kind of person who's very nostalgic. I love every bit of my life that has come up till now. I don't really throw anything away. Like I'm that kind of person where talk about attachment. I'm like I love people and I don't throw people away. I love things and there's certain things I don't throw away. But I think it all plays very well into who I am as a person, just because everybody who's come into my life has meant something to me in different ways. So I thank you so much for coming on today. We
Thank you
have kind
so
of
much for having me.
we've run through everything that I think we needed to run through on our little topic here, which I think is great. And then we also had like this little sidewinding um reminiscence about high school.
It was fun. It was good to revisit it.
Is there anything that you might leave somebody on this episode today? Maybe a tip or something that in regards to parenting in general, or the attachment cycle? Is there something that we could leave somebody with today that would maybe help them understand what's going on in their life better?
Oh, wow. Man, I
I
have so many
know.
things swirling through my head. But I'm going to go back to the circle of security and the work that we've already talked about because I think it's full of such great information.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they talk about there in one of their chapters in their work that they do and that I'm like taught to teach is that if grown-ups can be emotionally available 30% of the time, create that safe haven and that secure base about 30% of the time. That seems to be enough to create a secure and healthy attachment. So I feel like that's really good news because I wouldn't imagine the bar, that feels pretty low like a bar, but it just speaks to the importance of buffering relationships. I mean, it just has to be just enough, right? And so in the 70%, like when we blow it as grown-ups,
Yeah.
which we are going to because we are human and we are going to blow it. That 70% of the time is where resilience blooms. And so even when you mess up as a grown up, you are teaching your children something about accountability in the way you apologize, forgiveness in the way you acknowledge their challenges when your hands go off the circle and you blow it, or they push your hands off the circle because little children will sometimes push back against those boundaries that we set. That there's going to be a rupture that happens in that space as a
Yeah.
grown-up or as a child, and the problem isn't really the ruptures, it's a lack of repair. So my tip would be, like, if there's a rupture, identify it, name it, and make steps to repair it. And that's going to create so much safety moving forward.
Oh, that was beautifully said. Like I'm gonna have to replay this over and over and just take it all in.
It's a lot. It's a
It is
lot.
a lot, but I think that's why I'm doing these podcasts, is because life is a lot. But when
Mhm.
we have conversation, I think talking about things helps us process life. And if you're
Absolutely.
not talking to a friend, then I don't necessarily recommend talking to yourself. I cannot do that for some people can talk to themselves and work through their own problems, but I like having an ear. I like having an ear
Mhm.
nearby that can catch what I'm trying to say and then mirror it back to me a little bit. But again, thank you so much, Autumn,
Thank
for
you,
coming in
Jen.
today, my wonderful special guest, but special surprise guest, in my opinion. Like this is so great. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Talk to you
Thanks.
soon.
Talk soon. Bye, Jen.